Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Justin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. We're glad to have you here. It's Tuesday. Hope you're feeling good today. As you're filing in to watch the show, make sure you click that like button. Help support us and help spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty to more people so they can get it out in their feeds. We're glad to have you here. And of course, if it's your first time here today and you enjoy that content, subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on so that you can get more content whenever we go live every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. All right, there's a lot to cover today. Let's go ahead and hit it up strong. Elon Musk showed up to Mark Zuckerberg's house to fight him. This is starting to sound a little bit like high school or even middle school. I don't know. Apparently the fight that was supposed to happen between Tesla's Elon Musk and Meta's Facebook has been canceled, which I'm kind of sad about, honestly, because didn't you want to see Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg fighting each other in an octagon, or I guess it was going to be at the Colosseum of Rome, but apparently that's not going to happen. Yeah. But Zuckerberg is still down to do it. It's just that Musk has been pushing it back. And we'll talk about it a little bit later. There's bigger news. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in Hawaii, specifically about this little feature in your iPhones that could help save your life. We're going to talk about that function, and I'm going to explain it to you this morning and share with you a little short instructional video so that if you have an iPhone, you might be able to use this as well to save your lives. Many people have been killed in these wildfires that we're still trying to discover the source of. Conspiracy theorists online are pointing to the space lasers. No word yet from Israel on whether or not these lasers were Jewish. Just kidding. But we are going to talk about the way that lives are being saved, how many people have died in this horrible tragedy, and some of the travel advice that's been going around for people who might have had travel plans to Maui in Hawaii. At 7:30 this morning, we're going to talk about 19 people indicted and counting. A Georgia grand jury hands up the indictment in the Trump 2020 election investigation. This one might be the most serious charge yet. Out of all the indictments, Georgia is probably the most perilous threat to Donald Trump. Another week, another indictment. Trump, Giuliani, and Meadows are among 19 people who have been indicted in Georgia for this 2020 election probe. So former President Trump and then 18 of his allies were indicted on Monday by a Georgia grand jury in connection with his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in the Peach State. We'll talk about that this morning at 7:30 and go through it. And we also have some statements from that attorney who is coming after him. At 8 o'clock this morning, Camellia Peterson is going to join us to talk about a little bit more about that song, that viral hit by Oliver Anthony, who wrote a piece called Rich Men North of Richmond, which we spoke about yesterday on the show, but which is still going viral, and a lot of people have reacted to it. The National Review actually wrote a hit piece about the song, and they're predictably being pilloried over it, and everybody's calling them the Rich Men North of Richmond. So we'll talk about that with Camellia Peterson and some of the backlash online and what the song really means. It's the anthem of white boy summer, they say. At 8:30 this morning, my brother Justin Petersen is going to be here today. Yeah, see, it's not even Family Friday. LGB without the TQ plus was trending on Twitter yesterday as more battles over the inclusion of transgender people into the LGBTQ community have been heating up. California teachers have been claiming that toddlers are not too young for sexuality discussions about their genders. And so this is a discussion that unfortunately we need to have. I know that you probably get tired of these kinds of topics, but quite frankly, the fact is that if we don't talk about these things, then they're going to try that in a small town. Which, speaking of, Remy from Reason Magazine has a parody video out about Jason Aldean's song, Try That in a Large Town, he calls it. And I've got that clip ready to go for you today. We're going to have a great show today. You don't want to miss it. Again, make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you want to send us a text, you can at 573-319-1586. I do have a replacement phone coming into the show this morning, today, but I will. I won't have it this morning for the show. Excuse me. Wood Hippie's texting in today saying, "How'd you lose your phone?" I dropped it into the river. So we will talk to Wood Hippie maybe if he calls into the show today. Well, actually, you know what? He can't call in the show. You know why? I don't have a phone. That's how messed up I am when I don't have a phone. I can't track the time. I can't track the comments. I have no idea what you guys are saying. So just do me a favor and click that like button and comment into the ether to each other. Good morning. I do see that Kermode Bear is joining us over there on Rumble this morning. First one here. Good to see you, Kermode. Thanks for watching the show today. Okay, so I'm just going to do this story real briefly because I find it interesting. It doesn't merit an entire segment, but let's go anyway. Mark Zuckerberg calls off the Elon Musk cage match. He says, if Elon ever gets serious, he knows how to reach me. Apparently, Mark Zuckerberg is tired of waiting around for his cage match with Elon Musk. Less than 2 months after eagerly taking up the Tesla executives challenge, Zuckerberg has called off the bouts. So, yeah, he says that he offered a real date. Dana White, who's the president of the UFC, offered to make this a legit competition for charity, but Elon won't confirm a date. And then and this is Zuckerberg complaining. He says Elon won't confirm a date. Then he says he needs surgery. And now he asks to do a practice round in my backyard instead. I mean, Elon is being shady. To me, it just sounds like Elon's getting cold feet about this whole thing. Because I'm not going to lie. If you're Elon Musk, I would not want to take on Mark Zuckerberg at this point because Zuckerberg is in it to win it, and Zuckerberg has been training for much longer than he thought he was going to take for much longer than he thought he was going to have to take on Elon. Zuckerberg has been preparing and been winning some. He's been winning some jujitsu matches, some tournaments, and things like that. And it's not easy to win tournaments in jujitsu. You've got to be really good. And so I got to say, I like Elon. If I were to root for anybody in this battle, I would root for Elon. But quite frankly, I would bet money on Mark Zuckerberg. Don't get upset with me. I know. Camelia's out there giving me the boo. She loves her some Elon. But hey, man, it's just like with those presidential results right now, right? If you're betting your own money on who is going to win the presidential nomination, the Republican Party, I'm betting on the guy who's gotten indicted with 18 other people there. I finally pulled up YouTube, and I see Camellia says, you're supposed to lose your AR in the river, not your phone. Yes, very true. Quest Fanning says that he shared on Twitter, but the playback speed is grayed out, so I can catch up on 1 minute. Have no idea what that means. Again, if you're just tuning into the show this morning, make sure you click that like button, subscribe to the channel so that you can get updates whenever we go live, and you can text the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Some people say that President Joe Biden is indifferent to the fires in Maui because he knows that Hawaii is going to be Democrat anyway. The president of the United States received much criticism when he was on Rehoboth Beach in Delaware on vacation while Maui burned. That's right. The president of the United States doesn't seem too concerned about what's going on as hundreds of people have reportedly died. The ever-rising death toll in Maui continues up. It should have been the easiest thing in the world for the staff to set up a podium and a lectern and at the beach this weekend for President Joe Biden. Maybe he could stand up there and grandstand and offer some sympathy for the victims of this horrific Maui fire. But instead, when he was asked about it, all they got was this stony no comment, right? So when reporters asked him about it, he didn't seem to care. But when he was asked earlier that day if he'd take a visit to the disaster area, he said, we're looking at it, right? He doesn't really honestly seem to be too concerned about what's going on. And remember, he didn't show up to East Palestine in Ohio there either. But, again, those aren't his voters, so I guess care about them anyway. But I guess in order for the president to show any concern, it needs to be in one of those purple states. So maybe if something happened in Virginia or in Georgia, then perhaps the president of the United States might actually show some concern. But More important than all of the political stuff surrounding this, of course, are the people whose lives are in danger and people who have lost their loved ones. The most interesting and I think relevant aspect of this to everyone is that there apparently is this been this hidden iPhone feature in all of our phones that has been saving lives in these deadly Maui fires. An iOS feature that could save your life. In a natural disaster, there's a high chance that you might lose cell phone service that would make it impossible for you to contact your loved ones or emergency services. However, a little known feature called Apple Emergency SOS on the iPhone could be a literal lifesaver. If you don't know about this feature, let's take a look at Apple's explanation of this OS via satellite. An incredible feature and one that's saving lives. Not many people know about it. Apple Emergency SOS on the iPhone. A man by the name of Michael Miraflor recently shared a story on Twitter about the devastating wildfires that provided an actual real life example of how invaluable this feature can be. He said, "My brother's girlfriend's cousin and his family were caught in their vehicle in Maui while the wildfires suddenly erupted around them. No cell service, so Apple Emergency SOS was the only way they could get in contact with first responders," he continued. Literally saved their lives. So, as the video explained, the feature sends messages to emergency responders using a satellite, even if you don't have cellular service. He shared a screenshot, Miraflor did, of the texts between the fire department and the dispatchers, and they were able to pinpoint the family's location and sent this information to the dispatcher. That enabled the endangered residents to communicate the conditions surrounding them. So Miraflor said the family was safely evacuated within 30 minutes because of the emergency SOS satellite feature. The family was found at the outlets of Maui, which was a shopping mall in Lahaina, according to the Economic Times. Now, this feature from Apple was first released in November of 2022, according to Apple's website. So when a user makes a call with SOS, the phone automatically calls the local emergency number and shares your location with emergency services, including your health information if you so desire. Of course, I know a lot of people are going to be very people on our end of the spectrum, and we are on the spectrum, would probably be dodgy about something like that. Buddy Mansour, of course, with the comment says, if you don't pay your bill, you can still call 911 and they can still track you. That's good to know. Quest Fanning reminds us, I think it's iPhone 14 onward. He says that he has 12. He has an iPhone 12. So, yes, it does look as if it's iPhone 14 and up. JGJ, our friend, says satellite SOS is coming down the pike for Android. Qualcomm featured it during CES in January. I think this is amazing, and I hope that this continues to roll out to new phones. Corey C says he thought Samsung added this as well on the S21 and up. I don't know. S21, I've got one of those coming in today. What do you think about this feature? Have you ever looked at it on your phone? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about this. Kermode Bear says, I hate Apple's company culture and their products are very expensive, but they do have great tech and nice hardware. Yeah, I completely agree. Good morning, Nelson65, One Patriot listener, Kermode Bear, our friends over on Rumble. If you're watching us on Rumble this morning today, make sure you click that like button and, of course, subscribe to this channel here so that you can get updates whenever we go live. We're talking a little bit about the fires in Maui. In a few moments, we're going to talk about the indictments and why the indictment in Georgia against President Trump might be the most perilous yet. We'll get to that this morning at 8:30 a.m. You don't want to miss a single moment of that. This is just, I think, merits a brief mention. I saw this story yesterday for all the RFK stands out there. RFK Jr. backs 15-week federal ban on abortion and then reverses himself. Today, Mr. Kennedy misunderstood a question, his campaign said. So this is Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said on Sunday he would support a federal ban on abortion after the first 3 months of pregnancy. But then his campaign later said that he misunderstood the question. So when he was at the Iowa State Fair, Kennedy said that, I believe a decision to abort a child should be up to the women during the first 3 months of life. But he added, once a child is viable outside the womb, I think then the state has an interest in protecting the child. Wow. Well, okay. sounds like a good position. I mean, it sounds like the kind of position that a Kennedy would want to take, like a Kennedy style Democrat would take. The more conservative style Democrats. But of course, Kennedy's probably. You know what, Austin? Can you just not be mean for once? You know what? Just if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. How about that? That's why you always get in trouble. That's why you have no friends, AP. Good morning, Tolly Owens. Glad to have you here on the show. It's nice to see. AC asks the real questions about the Apple feature. Says, what happens when it's a few hundred people pinging them? Don't know the answer to that question, to be honest. Um, So, anyways, RFK says he would sign a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks or 21 weeks of pregnancy if he were elected president. That sounds like a fairly definitive statement. So, what's with the walking it back? So, apparently, Kennedy's campaign came out and said he did not mean to support any federal limits on abortion. So, today, Mr. Kennedy misunderstood a question posed to him by an NBC reporter in a crowd. His campaign said Mr. Kennedy's position on abortion is that it's always the woman's right to choose. He does not support legislation banning abortion. What? How does he make? See, here's the thing. This is just so shady, and we know what was going on. Probably was that a lot of his campaign crew were probably like, "You're trying to win a Democratic nomination here." Is that Mr. Kennedy spoke very clearly about what it was that he believed in regards to abortion. I mean, they're quoting him on the record here. He says, "I believe a decision to abort a child should be up to the women during the first 3 months of life." He added, "But once a child is viable outside the womb, I think the state has an interest in protecting the child." So how are you not understanding the question and then you answer the question in that way? I mean, I could understand when if you were to say, well, he misstated what he was that he believed, but not that he didn't understand the question, because it sounds like he understood the question. It's probably what happened here is this NBC reporter knew exactly how Kennedy felt about abortion and asked him that question, knowing the statement that they were going to get. Because one thing that I learned from my time in professional journalism is that you never ask a question that you don't already know the answer to. The most professional reporters or the best reporters, and of course, they're all trying to play gotcha, and they're all trying to get a breaking news or something like this that is a big story. Just like uh, podcasters like myself are always trying to get viral moments, right? We want our guests to say something that we can clip and go viral and all that kind of stuff. And most people do it by, of course, trying to destroy someone or destroy their personality because that's what gets the most views. And for example, I think when you see my interview that's going to come out with Jesse Lee Peterson, you'll see there are several moments, dozens of moments, because he keeps flinging questions at me in the interview where he's obviously trying to get me to say something stupid. He's trying to play gotcha. He wants to try and trap me into saying something that he can cut into a 30-second viral clip, upload it to his Instagram page, and then make more money. That's just how this game works. If you didn't know already, it's a shame, but that's what it is. And of course, the mainstream media does it just in a more professional way. Journalists ask questions, but very rarely do journalists ask questions that they don't already know the answers to, right? The most professional journalists, the ones who tend to make it to the top in this business, they ask questions that they know that already know the answers to because they know that they're going to be able to get something good out of it. So I would bet dollars to donuts that the reporter asking this question to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about abortion already knew Robert F. Kennedy's position on abortion. And the thing is, I don't think this is going to change anybody's mind, which I think is kind of fascinating because I do think that when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came out, for example, in favor of an assault weapons ban and said in an interview that he would sign an assault weapons ban if it were passed by Congress, but it's not going to be passed by Congress, he says, so it doesn't matter, right? There were a few people that I saw that were sort of knocked off the fence of RFK Jr. support, but for the most part, people who are already supporting candidates, they're kind of locked in, right? Once you get into once you've bought in, especially once you've made a donation, typically people don't walk away from that. It does happen. And I've had people who have been supporters of mine who have been upset by things that I said or did, or, to stances that I took on the record for whatever reason. And they, took their money and they ran. It absolutely happens, but it doesn't happen very often because you know why? Because people have their own they have their own ego tied up into that personality. So even if that person might disappoint them, if you've been out shilling for a candidate and then that candidate does something disappointing, you might still be embarrassed by what they say or do, but you're probably going to stick with them or find an excuse to continue to support them. Steph and I were talking about this the other day about a candidate that we supported in the past, about how, we both, when something very embarrassing came out about them, we're kind of like, oh no, 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 that's right. It's just, that's just how this profession works, and people's ego gets tied up into these things. So if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. comes out and says that he supports an abortion ban after 3 weeks, then the people who are supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr., even if they really adamantly disagree with him, they've got their personality tied up into it, right? They've bought the T-shirt, they've made the donation, they've knocked on doors, they're campaigning, or perhaps they work on the campaign and they have a good position and they really enjoy working with people and they don't want to leave. It's sad, but that's the reality of politics, right? And honestly, that is one of the reasons why I have stayed out of getting involved in many of the presidential campaigns this year. I have had people who have reached out to me asking for official support or for me to endorse this candidate or endorse that candidate. But part of the reason why I haven't done so is because I really do want to learn what these candidates are all about, what it is that they stand for, and I want to see if they're going to stumble and trip over their wings. You know what I mean? Or in the case of females, stumble over their long Austin, it's a little bit too early for this kind of stuff. Please just don't say that. Don't say those words. Okay, you don't need to say those words. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, we're glad to have you here. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to hear from you this morning. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. Again, that's 573-319-1586. If you text the show, we can hear from you today. We're glad to have you here. JGJ says that, why am I surprised politics doesn't have good people running for office? No, it's true, because good people know what it does to their families, and they say, hey, listen, I don't want this to happen to my family. Camellia says, oh boy, no, oh girl. Rise and Freedom. Good morning, Richard. Glad to have you over here on Rumble with us this morning. Rumble and YouTube always are our best friends joining us in the mornings. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on. I know some people do file in and then they forget to hit that button. I'm trying another delicious brand of coffee, Founding Flavors coffee, this morning. Did you guys see my Black Rifle coffee hit piece yesterday? Some people were really mad at me about this one, but hey, I'm just dropping facts. Some people were saying that it was exaggerated, that Black Rifle Coffee Company, that there were this, that it didn't really go down the way that Austin painted it. But listen, all I'm doing is reading from the Black Rifle Coffee Company's own words, from what they said about Kyle Rittenhouse and about the people who drink their own coffee. So this is more along the lines of me asking you the question: why are you drinking coffee from companies that hate you and didn't support Kyle Rittenhouse in the first place? Me, I supported Kyle Rittenhouse and got a 60 days ban on Facebook.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
While Frank Sinatra sings stormy weather, the flies and spiders get along together. Cobwebs fall on an old skipping record. Wham, 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 wham. While Black Rifle Coffee called you a racist, Kyle Rittenhouse killed those stupid assholes in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I said, hey, kill those pedophiles all day. That okay, fine, Austin, simmer down. Simmer down. All right. Actually, that wasn't too bad. Made that all up right there on the spot. How about that for a little improv? Stop drinking coffee from companies that hate you and don't support your cause. Buy coffee from me. It's absolutely delicious. And you know that every single dollar that you spend goes to support causes that you care about. Economic freedom and personal liberty. Try our Founding Flavors coffee at AP for Liberty. AP for Liberty shop. Try it today. And I think that you will really love it because we know of an ancient radiation that haunts this member's congregation. All right. When we get back from the commercial break, because I got to take a break, go to the bathroom. When we get back from the commercial break, we're going to talk about the 19 indictments and counting. No, this is not a remake of the Duggar reality show. This is Donald Trump's reality show. Sad reality. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Donald Trump and I approve this message. Believe me, Justin Petersen is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble, aren't we?
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionado
avocados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. Thanks for sticking around through the commercial breaks. I appreciate that very much. Sometimes I just got to take a little break. Okay, let's continue on here. Former President Donald Trump and 18 of his allies and supporters were indicted on Monday by a Georgia grand jury in connection with his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in the Peach State. Let's take a listen into the Georgia DA Fani Willis reading the names of those indicted by the grand jury, including President Trump and 18 others. This is her, Fani Willis, right here.
Thank you for joining us. I'm here with the prosecutors and investigators who have worked diligently on the investigation of criminal attempts to interfere in the administration of Georgia's 2020 presidential election. Today, based on information developed by that investigation, a Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state. The indictment includes 41 felony counts and is 97 pages long. Please remember that everyone charged in this bill of indictment is presumed innocent. Specifically, the indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump, Rudolph William Louis Giuliani, John Charles Eastman, Mark Randall Meadows, John Cheeseborough, Jeffrey Clark, Jenna Lynn Ellis, Ray.
The funny thing about the Jenna Ellis is that she's jumped off of the Trump train and she's now full-blown DeSantis and anti-Trump, and she's still getting caught up in these charges. She's got to hate that with every fiber of her being.
Stallings Smith III, Robert David Cheeley, Michael A. Roman, David James Schaefer, Sean Micah Tresher Steele, Stephen Cliffgard Lee, Harrison William Prescott Floyd, Travion C. Cootie, Sydney Catherine Powell.
Sydney Powell. Hey, whatever happened to that Kraken, by the way?
Austin Latham, Scott Graham Hall, and Misty Hampton, also known as Emily Misty Hayes. Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with one count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere to accomplish the illegal goal of allowing Donald J. Trump to seize the presidential term of office beginning on January 20th, 21.
Remember back in 2016 when Trump was debating Hillary Clinton, he was like, yeah, because you'd be in jail. And everybody was like, whoa. Like, this was the fantasy that the Republicans had was going to happen to the Democrats. Instead, the Democrats have turned this around and are now looking at putting Donald J. Trump in jail. When Fani Willis was asked about the supposedly fictitious Trump indictment posted online earlier that now matched the official charges, she had this to say.
According to the Fulton County Clerk's Office that was circulated online with charges against former President Donald Trump, that fictitious document matched exactly the charges that we now see in this indictment. Can you tell us more about that document leak? Because now you have the former president's lawyers who are saying that this is emblematic of a serious problem with your office.
No, I can't tell you anything about what you refer to. What I can tell you is that we had a grand jury here in Fulton County. They deliberated till almost 8 o'clock, if not right after 8 o'clock.
So this is how you know this stuff is being spun around like Pravda, where they are leaking these charges to the press before they're actually announcing it publicly. This is how you know that a lot of this is political. Here she is cracking jokes after calling for the surrender of Trump and his associates.
I will now take a very limited number of questions prior to going to sleep.
That's it? Was it all you hoped it would be?
Can you tell us what it says?
I did get a good look. So, you all need to leave? I mean that politely and nicely. You've had a long day, but these folks can't go until you all go. I know we had talked about leaving the equipment here. Don't leave the equipment here because you're not going to want to be here tomorrow. I mean, you're welcome to be here if you don't have a Rule 22 for what's going on tomorrow. It's just good old trial stuff.
Interesting. So what are your thoughts on this? You can send a text to the show at 573-319-1586. Out of all of these indictments that have been piling up against Trump in recent weeks, this one is the most perilous threat to Donald Trump. In Georgia, the Fulton County District, Fani Willis, that we just heard from, she unveiled this very ambitious indictment of the former president and 18 of his 2020 campaign advisors and operatives. These charges relate to Trump's efforts to undo Georgia's popular election, which was narrowly won by President Joe Biden. Remember the "find me 11,000 votes" comment? That may hinge on everything. Of course, like the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, is an elected Democrat. Just like in New York City, though, in Atlanta, the Democrats employing the criminal justice system against their nemesis makes for very good campaign progressive politics, even if it's dodgy law, right? That's not to say that Willis's case is going to be dodgy, at least as much as Alvin Bragg in New York's appears to be. Bragg started out with the man that he was targeting and then scoured the penal results to find a crime to pin on him. And of course, the result of this has just been kind of an embarrassing effort to convert a bookkeeping irregularity that harmed no one and may not even have been a misdemeanor into 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. That's the New York one. But in theory, Trump could be sentenced to over a century's imprisonment in a case that's been brought by a paradigm progressive prosecutor whose default position is to, of course, do as the left has been doing all across the country, refrain from prosecuting more serious crimes that plague New Yorkers and Atlantans. Now, Fani Willis, she's actually probing serious misconduct. And these were the schemes by President Trump to try and remain in power despite losing the election. She can plausibly maintain that she is investigating Trump based on what he did, not who he is. Remember that the Manhattan indictments have to do with a bookkeeping error. The idea that the hush money that was paid to Stormy Daniels for the affair that Donald Trump conducted while Melania Trump was away, Donald Trump will play, that the hush money that was paid to Stormy Daniels was allegedly paid for with campaign funds and not with his personal funds. So that, of course, is a mess, but no one is harmed by that. In regards to the Georgia election, however, the fined 11,000 votes is the kind of thing that is a big problem for Donald Trump, right? The question is going to be on whether or not what he did amounts to a criminal offense. So she's kind of running into the same complications that the Biden Justice Department special counsel Jack Smith faces in his election interference charges that he's brought against Trump in Washington, D.C.'s federal court. So there is significant overlap in that case and Willis's case. The federal case includes the Georgia shenanigans, but it's broader because Trump's schemes went beyond Georgia. He tried to reverse election results in additional battleground states won by Biden. So the problem with Smith's case in Washington, D.C., is that the federal penal statutes that he invoked relating to fraud and obstruction and civil rights do not clearly narrowly target the kind of behavior in which Trump targeted. So it may fall apart on that ground because it is too broad. So the special counsel has to stretch the law and get favorable court rulings to make the charges stick. He probably can't prevail, but it's still a serious case. Willis in Georgia, though, she will probably have smooth sailing because the system that's designed by our Constitution gives the states primary responsibility to conduct and police elections. Remember, we don't have federal elections in this country. We don't have national elections. We have state elections, right? So the states all have laws that are specifically tailored to election irregularities. And they have laws about attempting to subvert state processes for tabulating and certifying votes. So unlike what's happening in Washington, D.C., Fani Willis can invoke laws that are specifically designed to deal with election interference, the kind of conduct that Trump engaged in. So that's not to say she isn't going to be able to make some heads turn, right? Because, she indicted Trump under Georgia's anti-racketeering law. You usually hear about racketeering in a federal context where the RICO statute is used to prosecute like organized crime groups like the mob. But the basic idea behind anti-racketeering is to group a set of disparate criminal schemes under one conspiratorial arrangement, right? So thus, Willis is going to depict Trump and his campaign as the overarching criminal enterprise and allege that the group engaged in a variety of schemes, all aimed at reversing the election outcome, from Trump's push to pressure the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, to invalidate ballots that were cast for Biden. Remember, and this was a big deal because if you remember, the governor of Georgia, Kemp, he actually broke with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was very upset with Georgia Governor Kemp, so much that he supported someone else in a primary against him because Kemp refused to throw Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, under the bus because Raffensperger refused to decertify ballots for Joe Biden. And again, these are Republicans, right? And they have every incentive to try and help Donald Trump, but they didn't do so, even though they had been loyal to Trump before that. So it's just an absolute nightmare, and it's something that is going to continue on. They're trying to speed it up. They're hoping that it's going to get done before the election next year, but we don't know what's going to happen here. I would be really curious to hear your thoughts on this. You can send us a text this morning at 573-319-1586. Studio 314 has a great comment. He says, I never heard Lynn Wood's name uttered at all. He says, Studio 314 says that I think he was an opposition plant, to be honest. I don't think he was an opposition plant. I think he was just I think he's just batshit insane. And he probably turned on Trump because I think what happened is that Lynn Wood is probably going to go state, right? He's going to go and he's probably going to testify against Trump. So they probably approached Lynn Wood, and because the little critter that he is, they went and approached him to testify against him. And if they threatened him, and he turned coat, right? Just like you would expect he would. But I'm kind of surprised that Jenna Ellis, who's now out there stumping for Ron DeSantis, I'm surprised that Jenna Ellis hasn't cut some kind of a deal like that, because she's apparently no fan of Donald Trump anymore. So it's been an absolute mess and a total nightmare. And we're just going to have to wait and see what happens here, right? Kermode Bear over on Rumble says, the media has polarized Trump so much that it's impossible for him to have a fair trial. How does the country handle that? I have no idea. I mean, imagine a jury trial in Washington, D.C. And Stephanie and I think talked about this last week. Imagine trying to find a juror who doesn't know Donald Trump. I mean, he's got like near 100% name ID. So, I mean, probably the people who they have on there would be lying and saying that they didn't know Donald Trump, which means that then they're already compromised. So, I mean, I don't know how we get any kind of actual justice out of this, whether you're pro-Trump or whether you're anti-Trump. I just think that it probably doesn't. It no matter what, it does not bode well for our country. So I have no idea how to take this, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it and your feedback. You can send us a text today on the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. All right. Well, it's time for us to move on. We're going to talk to Camellia Peterson this morning at 8 o'clock about the song Men North of Richmond that's been going viral. We did talk about it yesterday, but I want to hear Camelia's take on it, especially now that the National Review has written a hit piece that's come out attacking the song. And the Oliver Anthony, the creator of the song, did a video yesterday where he responded to the outpouring of love and support that he's received. And I think it's worthy of mention. We're going to hear from Camellia Peterson at 8 o'clock, and then my brother Justin Petersen at 8:30 a.m. It's going to be a great conversation. You don't want to miss the 8 o'clock hour. But let's hear from Oliver Anthony, the singer himself, about the response that he's gotten and the backlash to his song Men North of Richmond. Take a listen.
I'm driving back home. I had a crazy time in Currituck. I always have fun in Currituck. Whether it's 30 people or it's 12,000 people, the Moore's Farm Market is just, there's nothing else like it. So thanks to them for putting it on. Thanks to all y'all for coming out. There were people who flew in, people that drove down from up north. Mind blown. And I mean, hell, we signed and took pictures a good 4 hours after the show. And it wasn't like people just came up and shook my hand. They come up and they told me about the battles they've been dealing with, depression and suicide and money. And, you know, those are real problems. This song is not something that it's not like it's some masterpiece I've created. It's the masterpiece and the emotions of the song. It already exists within you. Sometimes it just takes the right song coming along to let those out. But my question to you is, when Oliver Anthony's long gone and forgotten about, what can you do in your own life to maintain this energy, this positivity, this unity that I see among people like I've never seen before? What are the next steps to make life better for people? What can you do for your neighbor? There used to be such a strong sense of community in this country. And you still see it a lot in small town America, but even there it's dying out. Things just change too quickly these days, you know? But humans have the ability to possess such overwhelming compassion. And it seems like we've really let ourselves focus too much on hate. I mean, humans can manifest wicked amounts of hate. We've seen it all throughout world history, even in the last 150, 200 years. I mean, just some of the atrocities, the genocides, the war. We live in an era where we have everything. You know, there were wars fought over spices. Like, people died over spices. And now we can sit on the couch and we can order whatever spice we want from the comfort of our phone and the air conditioning. But we still want to fight. We still want to hate each other. We want to find reasons to hate each other. And I'm no Dr. Phil, but I just feel that in this moment in time, when so many people are feeling the same frustrations, it'd be wonderful to capitalize on that and just use that positive energy to help other people in your life. Maybe people that are different than you. People that you wouldn't normally connect with. I can tell you from my experience in the jobs I've had and all the people I've talked to, everyone has a really interesting story if you just give them the time to talk. It's easy to walk down the sidewalk by somebody and look down at the ground, look at your phone. But that really is a big part of the problem. We're all so disconnected from each other. We need to find a way to take this energy from this anomaly of a song, from this stupid guy that, I mean, look, I appreciate the compliments, but I'm not a good musician. I hardly know my way around the guitar. My singing's okay. That's not what made this. It's you and the struggles in your life.
In 2 miles.
That's what's made.
In 2 miles. All right, Men North of Richmond. For those of you who haven't heard it yet, let's take a listen to it. Men North of Richmond. Rich men, single women.
You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupamericashow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupamericashow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mom, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning. I'm Austin Petersen. Good morning to all friends of the Wake Up America show. Everybody except for the rich men north of Richmond. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm your host, Austin Petersen. We're glad to have you here. I am not a rich man north of Richmond. I'm a middle-class man far to the west of Richmond, to the Midwest. So make sure that you drop a super chat today to help support this show and become a monthly subscriber. Don't forget, if you are a monthly subscriber to the Wake Up America show, you get a 20% discount over at apforlibertyshop.com. So you saw those commercials, you saw some of our cool products like our Make Taxation Theft Again hat. Yesterday I added some cool new tax evader shorts. So when you're running from the IRS, you're going to need some really comfy shorts. Well, I got some awesome tax evader shorts for you over there. They say taxation is theft with the Gadsden snake on them. Check them out over at apforlibertyshop.com. Well, that song that you just heard from Oliver Anthony caused quite a stir online, and some people were attacking Oliver Anthony for the lyrics that he had in his song. And so we're going to talk about it right now with our friend Camellia Peterson, who's joining us right now from the lovely, what is that, the Gasconade River? Or what was the river that we were on this last week?
Okay, so I probably totally don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's the Courtois or it's Courtois.
Okay. We had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. It was nice. You know, some of the rivers we've been on before have had some spots that have been a little faster and deeper, and like you had to really try not to tip over. And this was just a lot calmer. Of course, that also meant it was very crowded with rafts, but
yeah, it was
okay,
kind
it was
of
fun.
bumper boats. Yeah. And of course, my phone is at the bottom of that river. Quite unfortunate. At least it wasn't you, right? Camellia, this song, Rich Men North of Richmond, has caused quite a stir online. Why do you think this is?
I think it's for the same reason that country songs along similar themes have always struck a chord with people, because that's real life. And whether or not, sometimes people think, well, this is America, and you mentioned it yesterday, even the poorest of our poor are, really rich in comparison to third world countries. But the thing is that everybody has their own pain, their own hardships, and so their own struggles. And a lot of people share these things. And I think that music comes out and it's relatable. People can relate to that. They can relate to their money being taxed to no end. I mean, you can relate to not being able to find a good job, although, that's probably a little easier to do right now than it has been. But even then, it just depends on where you are. So, and I think, there are common themes in here that you hear people talk about that maybe aren't popular, but they, are things like, if you're not taking care of yourself, should you be a burden on the rest of society if you're not being responsible for yourself? And the line in there about Epstein Island, I know is really kind of threw off people on the left, which is, I don't know, ironically, I don't know why. But anyway, I think that what he's saying is, like, people talk about, especially on the right, people talk about a lot of that kind of stuff. To me, this is kind of an indictment on his part of the right, because, everybody on the right is always talking about Epstein Island, and rightfully so. But are they also talking about the very real struggles of people who are losing their jobs as technology advances, and, those miners, miners. So I think it's, it's relatable.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I definitely was struck by it when I first heard it. And then I saw some of the criticism that had come out about it online, some of which I think was sort of valid, at least for the understanding of what Americans have in regards to comparing ourselves overseas. I mean, those are just kind of like the raw facts, but, facts don't care about your feelings and feelings don't care about the facts. I certainly I was struck by one person who talked about what the poor have in America compared to the rest of the world, which I think is a testimony to the fact that we have a much freer marketplace than many places do around the world.
That's
But
what capitalism will do for you.
yeah, for sure. And of course, the anarchists of our group are like, we don't have capitalism. And I'm like, okay, well, we've
Well,
certainly got it to a larger extent than many places, most places around the world, at least here in the United States. Yes, we are overregulated, but we're less regulated, far less regulations in many countries. Not all countries. There are countries that are freer than us. I think what's that one? There's like on the Economic Freedom Index, it's like Luxembourg or something like that overseas. It continues to rank at the top of the Cato Institute's economic freedom charts. And then there's this one country between Spain and France where it's just like one of those little tiny sliver countries. And then there's Monaco and different things like that. But anyways, I digress. But here in the United States, he's identified the problem as rich men north of Richmond. And he did clarify and say that he's talking specifically about politicians. But some people thought, that this was an attack on rich people, which I think he even said later in his YouTube comments that it's not just an attack on rich people. It's an attack
right.
specifically on the people who are enriching themselves at our expense, right?
Right. That's how I took it. When I heard that phrase, my assumption was that he was talking about politicians and, how they do seem to be enriching themselves at the expense of taxpayers and, their insider trading with the stock market and the access they have to all of these things that, average Joe doesn't.
Yes, for sure. Now, some people decided to criticize Oliver Anthony like almost from the left in a way. The National Review wrote a hit piece calling it Oliver Anthony's Fuzzy Lament by Mark Antonio Wright. And they say that he says, in a world full of Nashville pop country sludge, totally agree, Anthony sings with an authentic passion, and many people were instantly taken with his raw and raspy voice. I agree. And then he says that this is a great American story, but I don't understand the adulation on the right for this song's message, where he talks about working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay. And then here's how they criticize him. He says, my brother in Christ, you live in the United States of America in 2023. If you're a fit, able-bodied man and you're working overtime hours for bullshit pay, you need to find a new job. Okay, true. But there are some truths you probably shouldn't say if you don't want to get killed.
I mean, I read this, and then when I got to the bottom, and let's see, who wrote this? He's the executive editor, isn't he? Or
Let's see.
yeah, he's
Mark
the
Anthony
executive.
Wright.
Yeah, he's the executive editor
Yeah.
of the National Review. And I was like, first of all, I was like, my brother in Christ? Like, really?
Yes,
Come
that's the
on,
best
man.
internet slang is that he's speaking there right there. But he's kind of like,
So,
it did strike me very much as like the type of things that rich men north of Richmond might say.
yes, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, like this is music, it's entertainment. Sometimes I think people are probably taking this a little too seriously on both sides, but the reality is I do think that it struck a chord because there is authenticity to it. It's those themes that have always been relatable to people. And yes, does he use some poetic license? Of course. I mean, like is there a song that doesn't do that? So yeah, the people that are jumping at it, I think, are taking things way too seriously. In fact, I don't know that I might have sent it to you. I'm not sure, but Casey Maddox posted something about this on Twitter, and he said that the reaction to it is revealing about the shift in our politics. Because he points out it's the same message as Somewhere in the Middle of Montana by Merle Haggard, Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, countless other country songs.
Yeah.
But Democrats see it as attacking them now, and so they're condemning it and mocking it. And he had somebody, presumably a Democrat, who was responding to him, And it said, this is an insult to Merle and Dolly, who wrote about real problems, and they weren't astroturfing for make-believe white grievances.
What? Please.
Yeah, right. And so, like Casey has said, it's literally the same grievances. You work hard, you're taxed too much, prices are too high. And it is, you can talk about going out and being able to find jobs all day long, and you can. Like, if you want to work for $15, $18, $20, I'll hire you right now, for $20 an hour. It's part-time. But the thing is that you can pay people that much, but inflation is so bad right now that it just it negates it. You can go find a job, but you can't, deny that inflation is making things a lot more difficult. And it's just, she kind of carries on with this, and she's saying, that the cheap shot at obese folks is, literally talking about people getting fat on welfare. And, she's just, anyway, the thing is like,
I was going to say, here's another part from the National Review piece that I think is kind of bullshit. He talks about, in the song, the lyrics say, young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground because all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. I completely agree with that. But here's what Marco Antonio Banderas, whatever, says. The tragedy of young men killing themselves through drink or drugs, the catastrophe of deaths of despair, is a crisis of our own making. The federal government in Washington, Anthony's Men North of Richmond, has had a destructive role in our society. But Washington is not the cause of our national sickness. It's a symptom, writes the National Review. Bullshit. I call bullshit.
Okay. So on a very intellectual, philosophical level, I can kind of agree with that, because we elect the people, that's how the process is supposed to work. We put those people in office. And so sometimes I think, we do have to look in the mirror. But at the same time, there is, you can maybe have that kind of direct effect at your state and local level, but having an impact and having a say in who's really running, who gets elected at the federal level, much different story for a lot of different reasons. And it may be true, but it also is, totally missing the fact that people get up there and they get in DC and they get lost in this morass of the game. And it is a game. Like, you get into that, and there's just, even the best people get in there and have a lot of difficulty. And I think people don't really understand that until they are in that themselves. So we're on the outside here looking in and thinking, what the hell are they doing up there? Because why aren't you fixing anything? I listened to I was at a meeting the other night when Congresswoman Ann Wagner was speaking to a group, and that was the response. People were like, all of these things going on. And one man was like, what are you doing to fix it? Like, they want to know what you're going to do to fix it. Like, and that's nice, but she herself probably doesn't have any power to just fix it.
Yeah, it is kind of sad. And I think it was Justin Amash who pointed out the fact that if you're just a regular congressman and you don't sit on the leadership of any powerful committees, you don't have the ability to bring stuff to the floor. And ultimately, the Speaker of the House, they have all the power. They're the ones who decide what gets voted on and what doesn't. So if you don't have curry favor with the Speaker of the House, your representative just might as well be a post office box, because it doesn't, there's nothing there. It's like a telephone pole. It doesn't do anything. Well, it holds up telephone lines. Okay.
Well, I think what Oliver pointed out with, the young men, killing themselves and things like that, I think is a really important point, because he kind of alludes to this crisis of masculinity that we have in our nation right now and in our culture. And it is, the thing is that that is on us to fix, to address, because we don't need the government addressing that. But a failure to acknowledge that, I think, is a mistake. So I think a failure, I think on the part of our elected officials, do I want them using the force of government to fix this for me? No, I don't want them to use the force of government to fix a lot of things for me, but I do want them to get the heck out of the way and to stop instituting policies that are actually enabling these trends that are putting young men down and making them feel terrible about themselves. Because they definitely do that. We see that, with a lot of the policies when you talk about, these social justice policies and, DIE and all these sort of things.
Yeah, no kidding. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. We're glad to have Camellia Peterson joining us on this show right now. Make sure that you click that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts this morning. If you want to text us, you can at 573-319-1586. We're speaking to Camellia about Oliver Anthony, whose song Men North of Richmond has gone supernova. And we're talking specifically about criticisms that were lobbed at the song by the National Review. I think it's such a, at the end of this piece from the National Review, it's such a weenie sounding kind of statement they make where he says, I wish Oliver Anthony the best, and I'll give his next single a listen, but he should consider singing about what makes America a great land, a land of opportunity, not of guaranteed success. It's a land that's made for you and me, which is so patronizing. And so
I was going to say, yeah, condescending terribly.
So condescending, so annoying. Exactly the kind of thing that Oliver Anthony's song is about. The type of like attitude towards people south of Richmond. But here's the thing: he's quoting, "It's this land is made for you and me." Which is was that Oliver Guthrie that sang that song? This land is made for you and me.
This land is your land.
This land is my land. Which we all were taught to sing as kids, but we didn't know Camellia is a song that's about communism.
Right.
So the National Review,
remember hearing that.
Right, the National Review, which I subscribe to for some reason, is supposed to be like the classical liberal, like the magazine of note, is favoring a communist song over somebody who is more of their ideological ilk, or at least should be. What the hell?
I know, right? I think this is the whole problem that a lot of the think tank kind of components of the right, it's a trap they tend to fall into, is they get so high-minded in your philosophies and your thoughts about things that you forget to know what you like, forget what real life is like. Everything is not a high-minded philosophical view. You have to actually put on the shoes of the people that you're talking to and walk a mile in them. And, because, the criticisms of Oliver having a fancy guitar or equipment, things like that, the thing is that you can have those things. It's a very real thing that you can have those things. Those are one-time purchases, but your steady, regular, everyday life of what comes in and what goes out financially can be such that it still, in spite of those things, makes it difficult to subsist and have a good living, because, you can't you can't go sell your guitar and then that's going to sustain you for a year.
Yeah, no, good point there. It's still people living paycheck to paycheck. Camellia, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go today?
Well, I would say this. I was talking to, kind of related, was texting with someone last night, and we were talking about women crying, and that's a whole other different topic.
Oh boy.
But the thing is like she brought up, in the last 5 years, she feels like she's cried more in the last 5 years. I told her, she said maybe it was COVID that made it worse. Maybe it was that loss of freedom. And I told her, I was like, I do think there's something very valid to that, in that people have just, as a nation, people are just still more sad, more angry. I mean, from my observation and from what I sense, than from before COVID. And I think that it's this, if you haven't ever read about mass psychosis, you should definitely go check that out. The Academy of Ideas is a great place to check that out. But I think we have experienced that in this country. And there's always the ebb and flow. We've definitely gone through terrible times before. But I do think that we're still coming out of that time and trying to recover from this mass psychosis where people just were turned on their heads. And there's still a lot of, just depression and anxiety that is still associated with that, even if they don't recognize that that's what's going on.
Honestly, that makes a lot of sense, Camellia. It's a great point. I'm glad that we brought you on here today to talk about that, because I wouldn't have thought about that at all, but that's absolutely very relevant. Camellia Peterson, thank you very much for your time today. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday. It was really fun hanging out with you this last weekend. Can't wait to do it again next year.
So good. Have a great Tuesday, everyone.
Thanks very much. All right. Well, LGBT, drop the T. Drop the Q plus as well. My brother Justin Petersen is going to join us at 8:30. But when we get back, we've got a couple clips to play for you. When I was 14 years old, Someone writes, a 40-year-old transsexual manipulated me into changing sex. Yikes. For years, they secretly took puberty blockers until I finally saw through the lies of the trans activists. This is their warning for parents everywhere. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Click that like button. It was 1946. A battle was fought, not overseas, but right here on American soil. The Battle of Athens, an intense struggle against election fraud and for the rights promised by our founding fathers. Driven by the Second Amendment, ordinary citizens stood tall and fought back. Help us expose this momentous battle of integrity and bravery. Your support can make a difference. Visit givesendgo.com/bleedamerican and pledge your support, because we believe in the power of truth, the strength of unity, and the spirit of we the people. Let us not forget, we bleed American.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
There's so much trans hate in the fucking world. There's so much trans hate in the world right now, and I'm so done with it. And pride just means that we are unabashedly happy just to be alive.
Yeah. And where do you personally feel that that hate is coming from?
Most places, but especially the government.
And in your own life, where would you say that you feel the hate the most?
I feel like I kind of internalize a lot of the hate, so it feels like it mostly comes from myself at this point, because...
Yeah, there it is. All right. Mostly comes from inside at this point. Good morning. I'm Austin Petersen. Thanks so much for tuning into the Wake Up America show. We're looking forward to having my brother Justin Petersen here in about 5 or 6 minutes. LGB dropped the TQ plus trending on Twitter for the last 24 hours. And you no wonder why so many in the LGB community are saying it's time for us to separate our groups into distinct groups, with them not wanting to be associated with the transgender, queer, and, well, what does the plus stand for? Ask yourself that. Maybe we'll ask Justin here in a few minutes. This article in the Daily Mail has a lot of people talking about why people might want to separate these distinct movements. Lucas Sikowski writes in the Daily Mail just yesterday, when I was 14 years old, a 40-year-old transsexual manipulated me into changing sex. For years, I secretly took puberty blockers until I finally saw through the lies of the trans activists. This is my warning for parents everywhere, Lucas writes. He says, when I was very young, I was manipulated into a reassignment, also known as gender correction, by a transsexual man in his mid-40s. For several years, he gave me puberty blockers, dangerous substances that block the effects of testosterone and hormones of the opposite sex, i.e. estrogen. Before I turned 18, a psychologist, psychiatrist, and sexologist, after one visit without any tests, fabricated a diagnosis of transsexualism and referred me officially for a sex change, which should have never happened. Currently, I've had a reversal procedure returning to the true sex I was born with, which I'm very happy about. He says that he is gay, and that has a lot to do with the story. When I was 12, I struggled with the lack of self-acceptance. I already knew that I liked people of the same sex. For the first time, he experiences his childhood crush, but subsequent events in his life, indicated that he realized that he was, in fact, gay, not transsexual. Now, the story goes on for quite some time, but the gender reassignment idea came along at the age of 13 when he was struggling with his orientation and the idea of dating someone that was normal for his age and increasing sex dysphoria. He came across this program in which transsexuals were presented. It was then that the thought occurred to Lucas, that was a topic that he should be interested in. He searched for information on the internet. He got in touch with one of the internet users, a 40-year-old transsexual person, and he calls her Yua. The communication then moved to them from that chat room. It was quite intense, and that person was quite frequently unemployed, so they had plenty of time to correspond with that young boy. The person said that they had a keen hatred of homosexuality, which they said to the boy on numerous occasions. She criticized them, ridiculed them, devalued them, and demonized them. The aversion confirmed to that 14-year-old child that gay people are bad people. Now, this is the transsexual doing this, demonizing homosexuality, and coming up with the idea that really there is only transsexuality. I mean, we're talking about a person who is mentally ill, who has access to a child through the internet, and took that person to a doctor, or I wouldn't say a doctor, a psychologist, to give them the diagnosis that they needed so that they could see a doctor and go through a life-changing surgery. We're going to speak to my brother, Justin Petersen, about this. I'm going to go get him right now. I'll be back in less than 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, so don't leave. We're going to continue to talk about this and the LGB Drop the TQ Plus movement when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America Show. I've decided that Justin Petersen will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than.
Well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian.
And always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government. Get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel if it's your first time here and you enjoy the content. Helps us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, which I'm all about. All right, well, we had a great conversation with one Petersen this morning. That was Camellia Peterson, S-O-N. It's time to speak to another Petersen, though. An S-E-N. No, not me. My better half. My much more attractive and stronger and much taller brother, Justin Petersen, joining me now. Good morning, JP.
Hey, good morning. We are twins today, it looks like.
Yeah, we're looking a lot very similar today. Yes. Have you been working out, Justin? You're getting pretty freaking buff, bro.
Yeah. Can I just tell you that here's the secret? Well, at least lately. Resistance bands are amazing.
Yes.
Because you can get them in all different resistance levels. They are so good on your joints, so you're really putting the impact into the muscles. And, you know, can you get jacked on resistance bands? Yes. And as I like to tell people, muscles don't have eyes. So that means that the muscles can't see what you're picking up. So if you want to do it at home workouts, if you want to do workouts on the go at work, resistance bands, they travel well. I'm obsessed with resistance bands of late.
Okay, I'm definitely into it because like I need some kind of an additional exercise in addition to karate, and you can actually use them in karate too. But
it's beautiful.
Yeah, I keep throwing my back out with some of these exercises, so I need something that's like a little bit more low impact.
It's very smooth. That's the thing. And I think the reason I switched over was because I was seeing a lot of guys in their 40s, 50s, 60s who did a lot of gym work, and they subsequently went over to bands because of the joint impact, because they were just like, it's Sylvester Stallone was saying, yeah, you work out so long, you know, the bill comes due.
Yeah,
so
no,
I was
for
like,
sure.
brother, yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be 70 years old and have like all these joint issues from lifting weights, you know?
No, you're right. It's a good point. Thanks for that, Justin. We'll appreciate those tips. And send me a link if you've got some like resistant band kits or something like that.
Oh, listen, I'll get you hooked up.
All right. Well, yesterday, Justin,
we can sell them in the store.
That's a great idea. We could call, some kind of like Liberty bands or something like that. Get swole for freedom.
There you go.
Justin, yesterday on Twitter, I saw LGB without the TQ plus was trending. And this is something we've talked about before in the past, but it seems to be gaining steam. This idea that the LGB movement wishes to separate from the TQ plus, not just because it seems that they're giving them a bad name, but because there really isn't a whole lot in common with these separate groups. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see that a lot on social media, and
I mean, I get the grievance there, part of it. My thing is, it sounds to me like one of those empty internet platitudes. It's like, okay, great, that's a great slogan, but what does that mean? And how does that translate? And what is that? How are you going to do that? And what's that going to look like on at the ground level? I'm like, okay, what does that mean? It's just sort of like how is that? In other words, how is that going to come into fruition? How would that operate, right? I mean, are they separate in a way? Yeah, I mean, obviously, clearly. I mean, gender identity and sexual orientation really don't have anything. There's no Venn diagram where those two things overlap, in my opinion. Because sexuality depends on a dimorphic sexual, attraction, right? Unless you're bisexual. But these things are getting more complicated as we go. As everybody knows, like pansexual, which is just like bisexual with extra steps, and yeah.
Right. And, when you see those things and, that obviously it's a little bit more complicated, but I mean, there's a lot of frustration amongst the community, Justin, with, the desire for men to be able to invade male spaces, right? I think I sent you this article from a California teacher claims that toddlers are not too young for sexuality discussion. A California pre-K teacher sparks outrage after he says childhood innocence does not exist, refers to it as a mythology, and claims toddlers are not too young for sexuality discussion. Justin, that is a problem.
Let me ask you a question. How comfortable are you as a parent with that teacher as your child's teacher?
Well, it's California, so I won't lie to you and tell you that I know people in California who, if you approach them with something like that, would be like, "Oh yeah, no, it's fine."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, it's and it's funny because I think in the article that you sent me, I read that article, and it was talking about how it's like Christianity or something that has had some influence on that. It's like, oh, well, that's just a Christian myth. I'm like, let's talk to some friends who are Muslims and see how they feel, because I guarantee you that many of the Muslim people that I know in the Muslim community also want to protect their children, and many people in the Jewish community want to protect their children as well. So wrong. It's just a stupid attack on Christianity. And I'm not saying Christianity doesn't oftentimes need to take its knocks, but this is not a knock on Christianity,
No, wanting to protect children from radical gender ideology is not a knock on Christianity, and it's not just and it's not just Muslims, and it's not just Jews. It's secular humanists like myself who think that this is a problem when it comes to children. But I mean, what we're talking about here are people who wish to advance a philosophy that was mostly pioneered in the 1960s by these French philosophers who thought that children really can consent to sexual activity by adults. There are people who are not just insane, Justin. It's easy to just paint some of these people off as psychotic, and some of them absolutely are.
Right.
But some of these people really believe this.
Oh yeah, I mean, these ideas a lot come from Michel Foucault, and if Michel Foucault was a mid-century French philosopher, and if you look into his sexual proclivities, you'll come up going, wow, this is abnormal sexual experience. Even as a gay man, he would go and do the whole like very dark BDSM stuff, and even for a lot of gay people, that's a little too far afield for some people. And this sort of negation of the innocence of children is, to me, I have no other word for it but evil. Like, I think that's evil. I mean, that's truly satanic in the truest sense, to destroy the youth and the innocence of children. Because there's Alok Men, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a gender activist, and he was saying that like little girls are kinky, and I'm just kind of like, there's a special place in hell for you.
Justin, the reason why I like talking to you about this subject is, obviously, because you're a gay man, and our experience together growing up was a journey from innocence to awareness. But one of the more poignant tales, I think, in our growing up was the idea that before you knew what sex was, you knew that you were not attracted to women the same way that I was, right? And so there's this confusion that we go through as young men, as young children, trying to figure out who we are and what we like and what we don't like, and we have our own sexual preferences and things like that. But I mean, like, you have this struggle that you endured as a gay man. Imagine if you had someone like a 40-year-old man come and tell
Right.
you, "Oh, you're not gay, you're actually a woman." I mean, can you imagine how
Well,
confusing? I mean, you're
right.
already confused. Imagine how vulnerable you might have been.
I agree. And the thing that we don't talk about a lot of times is that many gay men in their childhood they present as gender nonconforming because they're into girlier things. Maybe they like dolls, they like more girl stuff. Well, if you're a little boy and you start to then have affection for, maybe you feel like, a little crush on a little boy or something like that, you do have a sort of dysphoric situation in your mind because you think, why do I have these feelings? These are not normal feelings. And then that's where that whole idea of like, well, maybe I'm in the wrong body, right? That comes around by the time you're 5 or 6 years old, because you're confused about why you like these things. Why do I like girl things? Why do, maybe I'm a girl and I'm in the wrong body. Nobody talks about that. But the issue that we see with kids who go through puberty, these kids who are gender nonconforming or sort of pulled more towards the trans ideology, once they get through puberty, they become gay. And that's why a lot of us in the gay community are thinking that, it's a lot of transing the gay away. It's, in other words, what you're doing is you're making people into heterosexuals through medical transition. You're turning people straight. It's sort of a straightening out of people, because that's, a lot of people think that's how deep the homophobia goes, right? That's how deep it goes. And it's so, because they do this in Iran, they do this in the Middle East. Rather than kill you, they'll just change your gender, and they'll just be like, oh, you're a man, you're a man who thinks you're a woman, okay, well, we're just going to change your sex organs. And they do that in the Middle East.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. We're glad to have you here on the Wake Up America show. Click like and subscribe to the channel so you can get updates whenever we go live every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. You don't get conversations like these anywhere else. My brother, Justin Petersen, joining us now live from Boston to talk about the increasing push for the LGBs to drop the TQ+. We're talking about that with my brother, Justin Petersen, right now. Now, Justin, the transgender community looks at people like you and would say you're a bigot for the positions that you're taking right now. How would you respond to that?
I was a bigot only within the past 5 minutes.
Explain.
Only within the past 5 minutes, right? Since the goalposts have shifted, because I decided to get off the bus, now I'm a bigot. Because it's like, it's like the idea that, okay, the group is going to always be right. The group I'm in is always going to be right. And I'm like, no, I reject that premise entirely. The idea that this group, any group that we're in is always going to be in the right. I'm like, no. And you don't get my loyalty, and you don't get my loyalty just because I belong to a group of people, an immutable characteristic, that we all share an immutable characteristic. I'm like, no. And I, like you, I value common sense. I value reason. I value rationality. And I'm like, no, we can't have those kinds of discussions. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in a group that won't have rational discussions. If you want to have a rational discussion, let's talk about this. But, honestly, at the same time, I think about that a lot, the bigot idea. I think you have to know who you are internally, and then you have to not care, because when people start calling you names, it doesn't matter, because you know who you are internally. And it's like, I feel like the Big Lebowski, it's like, well, that's just kind of your opinion, man. That's kind of how I just feel about it now. And I'm like, it doesn't hurt me, because I know who I am, and I know who I've been when the rubber hits the road, and what I really stand for, and where my values and where my ethics are. And I don't have anything to reproach myself with, because I would seek for the greatest freedom for all people. And I don't think that that's true of all.
Justin, another story from the Daily Mail that I shared with you that is a lesbian speed dating event was accused of transphobia for saying only adult human females can attend after concern when a would-be matchmaker turned up in a purple latex outfit with an erection.
This has always been my issue with this. Well, besides the kid stuff, but it's also the dating thing. It's sort of this enforcement on you, this sort of pushing onto you of like what you should be sexually interested in, which to me smacks of, some of it's like the horseshoe theory of politics, right? Where you live so long, you get to the other side of the horseshoe, because in the 80s, it was like, well, you just haven't met the right woman. right? It's like that would be the
Right.
whole article. Or like the women would say, like lesbians would be like, well, you just haven't met the right man yet, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then men come in and be like, I'll be the guy who will get you, girl. I'll be the
I'll
guy.
make her.
I'll make her straight, you know?
Yeah.
And it would, I'd be at the party with my beer and just be like, okay, keep trying. But like, you know, the idea of respect in those spaces is lost, because here's the thing. People have a right. I mean, I don't know. This is the UK, right? I think this was in the UK that this story happened. I don't know that they have a freedom of assembly or freedom of association in the UK. I don't know if that's a thing like we do in this country. But, you know, here's the other thing, and I've thought about this quite a bit. Like, for example, on some of the apps, right? The dating apps, because that's a lot of people where they meet nowadays, you know, like they meet on the apps. You'll see a transgender woman, right? Okay, in the apps for gay men. So this is an app for gay men. And then there'll be a transgender woman, right? Female presenting, right? And so we're told, okay, by the political climate of the time, trans women are women, right? So let's hold that idea in our head, trans women are women. Okay, so by that logic, why is a woman in a gay men's dating space? That makes no sense to me, right? What straight women get a wild hair up on a Friday night to say, hey, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go down to the local gay, you know, beer house and get me a big old homosexual, you know? Like, that doesn't happen. What straight women are doing that? I mean, the straight women who hang out with gay guys, we have a name for them. It starts with AG, FAGHAG. That's what we call them.
The Film
right?
Actors Guild.
The Film Actors Guild. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, why are you here? And it's funny because the only people left in a gay bar at like 2 a.m. are women. All the other guys have gone home. We're like, girl, you can get a ride, right? You can go, you can take a train,
Are
you
you
can
gonna
take
be
a
able to
bus.
get home tonight, honey?
Yeah, you'll be okay, girl.
Yeah.
Okay, bye, girl. You go, girl. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the dating thing is where I just kind of lose my mind. I'm like, no. And I've heard I've heard like based trans people say, one of the things that you take on when you become trans is you realize what you're doing to your dating pool, right? So it's like, it is part of that transition. It's part of that difficulty, right? Because first of all, even if you become gay, well, if you are gay, I don't say you become gay, because it's not like, oh, I choose, because it makes it sound like a choice. But like, if you already limit your dating pool is already limited, right? But to me, it's this idea of association, and it's also like just coercion. I just don't like coercion. Maybe that's what it is. It's like, you will find me sexy, and I'm like, no, I won't really.
Yeah,
I really
it's like,
won't.
I'm 350 pounds. You will find me attractive.
But I'm like, and you know what? Listen, there are people who do, and
sure,
you could just got to find your magical unicorn. Go off and find where your magical unicorn is, and it's like, you know, and you might have to do some looking. But listen, as I always love to say, this is one of my favorite dating aphorisms. There's a lid for every pot, honey. There's a lid for every pot. And you just got to find your lid out there. And it's like, and that's the thing, you know? So yeah.
Justin, where do you think this is leading to this point? Because we are seeing some legislation that is being passed in places like Texas, where, for example, you know, women will not be required to compete against biological men, right? We know that it's, you know, it seems wrong to me to force women to come into contact with naked men, you know, in their locker rooms, like against their consent. But I don't know which way the pendulum's going to go at this point. Where do you feel?
Why does this only go one way? Why is this only that women should bear this burden? That's my question. Why is all of this centered in women's spaces, women's stuff, women's dating lives?
Well, if I could throw
stuff?
that back at you, I would say the reason why is because women have been invading male spaces for so long that perhaps now we're saying, you know, let women reap the consequences let them reap what they've sown. I mean,
well,
straight white men aren't
that.
voting. Straight white men aren't voting for these policies, Justin.
No.
These are white liberal females who are, by and large, supporting these kinds of policies because they don't want to appear to be racist or sexist or homophobic in their friends group. And a lot of this stuff that is sort of being pioneered by women.
Yeah, and I've listened to a lot of really smart intellectual trans people talk about, where do we go? How do we move forward? Because I want to hear what they have to say. I want to know what their perspectives are, because I think there are people in this world that are trans that want to live like everybody else in a society, get along, live their lives, have as much dignity as they possibly can. But again, there's a small faction of a group, like I was hearing Vivek Ramaswamy say yesterday, the tyranny of the minority, right? That there's this very minor group of people who are very loud and very disruptive, who come in and just sort of run roughshod over everybody else. And I think, reasonable accommodations can be made, but we can't get there if everyone's so violently, partisan or extreme in their views on everything. We can't come together and make, good policy because of the extremists, because of those minority groups, those very, very small groups.
Do you think, Justin, that women should be allowed to compete against other women and not be forced to compete against biological males?
I mean, as a person who believes in science and rationality and yeah, otherwise why have women's sports in the first place? Why have them at all? Why just put women in everything? We'll just all compete against each other and we'll see how it all shakes out. I mean, I think there was a reason we had to do that in the first place. We had to have women's sports in the first place so that women could be on an equal footing biologically with each other.
Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense.
So,
Justin, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners about this topic before we let you go?
oh, Lord have mercy. Well, just know that there are rational people out there, and there are good conversations happening up around this topic that are not invective, that are not mean, that are not vitriolic, and not every person in the community is your enemy. So like when you meet someone who's LGBT, whatever, don't automatically assume everything you think about them based on social media, because, we're not all the same and we don't all have the same opinions about things. And I have found the more I've talked to people in an honest way and honest conversations, more people agree rather than don't. People, when you come at conversations rationally with good intent, are much more likely to listen to you than if they come in, sort of with their hackles up, So don't judge all books by their covers. And because if you do, that is homophobia, that is transphobia. If you're like, well, I know everything I need to know about you based on your, characteristics.
Justin, where can people follow you online?
I'm on Twitter at Justin J. Petersen with allease.com. I don't really tweet very much. I'm mostly a retweeter. But I like to just follow the social conversation, what's going on. And you can always, reach out to me there on Twitter, I guess.
There you go, at Justin J. Petersen. That's my brother, JP. Justin, thanks so much. Love you, brother.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thanks very much. We'll see you very soon. All right. Well, Kermode Bear over on Rumble says Justin needs to come back more often. We definitely will have to get Justin on there a little bit more. All right. Well, try that in a small town, said, Jason Aldean. But for those of us who would like to have the Reason Magazine version, why don't you try that in a large town? Remy has a new song for us. Take a listen.
Despite the controversy, the song has gained popularity, something other musicians are keen to capitalize on.
Open a lemonade stand on the sidewalk. Go for a long walk in the middle of the night. Keep schools open so that kids can keep on learning. You think it's cool? Well, act a fool if you like. Put someone's groceries in a bag that doesn't immediately break. Don't bake a penis cake. We'll try that in a large town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we're punishing our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a large town. Call the line for 9 emergencies. Cause somebody's dropping trousers on your daisies. That stuff might fly in the country. Good luck. Try that in a large town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we speed camera our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I reckon recommend you don't. Try that in a large town.
That was Remy from Reason Magazine. Try that in a large town, the Jason Aldean parody. Very good stuff. We appreciate you tuning into the Wake Up America show. Oh, you hear that song? Oh, no, that means that it's time to go. I'm very sorry, everybody. It's been a great show, wouldn't you say? If you haven't yet, click that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to hear from you anytime. You can always drop your comments below. How about a super chat or two if you enjoyed the show as well? Drop a little tip in the tip jar before you go. Help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Please, sir, could I have some more? But if you don't want to drop a tip in the tip jar and you say to yourself, well, I'm Ebenezer Scrooge and all I want is a hot cup of coffee to get my day started. So if I'm going to give any money, it's going to be for something that I'm going to get something back. Well, you can do that too. At ap4libertyshop.com. Try our delicious founding flavors coffees over at ap4libertyshop.com. Stop sending money to woke corporations that hate you, think you're a racist, and basically want you dead. No, I don't want you dead. I like you. I don't think you're racist. I think you're a pretty cool person. So why don't you support people who support you? Head over to ap4libertyshop.com. Certified, woke, free, patriotic coffee company. My favorite is the Electric Elixir, Benjamin Franklin's Electric Elixir. You might try all of them, though, and see which one you like the best. Jeffersonia and Java, that light roast, got lots of caffeine, though, so make sure that you are ready to go. Check it out over at ap4libertyshop.com. Get yourself a bag of 2 or coffee. You save money the more bags of coffee that you buy. So if you buy 2, 3, 4, the savings add up. So head over to ap4libertyshop.com. Get yourself a couple bags of coffee in the mail on the way. Don't forget, free shipping to the United States because we love America. And America loves you too, AP. It's because you're waking them all up. Literally and figuratively. So clever. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Justin Petersen is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun. Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides. Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that? Big brother, please focus. Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.